Sri Gajanan Vijay Granth, Chapter 6. O emblem of all good fortune! It is an established dictum that a saint's kind blessings drive away inauspicious happening. I have come to your door with great belief and hopes. If you fail me, it would bring disrepute to you and all seers. God Madhava, don't get upset with me. Uphold the prestige of this innocent child. Kindly remember that they hold the mother answerable for any shortcomings of her young toddler. Once Bankatlal organized festivities at his farm for his friends to enjoy roasted corn on the cob. Saint Gajanan was an honored invitee, the main attraction of the party. They sat near the well, age old, holding ample water in its fold. Tall tamarind trees stood around, looking down on the guests squatting on the ground. Fire was ignited at a dozen of places to roast the corn pieces. Smoke arose to the skies, disturbing the beehives. Wild bees from the trees with their fiery sting swung down, hovering on the guests, eagerly waiting their turn for the cob. Instead, they had to run amok, covering their faces with blanket wheels. Everyone loves his own life. It was true of these people. Saint Gajanan sat nonchalant in this entire scramble, deeply engrossed in his reflection. He thought of the bees, beehives, of himself, the guest, and the corn, saying, I am the bee and the stinging thorn. I am the beehive too, and a part of this show. I am the corn and the eater also. All this is part of the cosmic entity, wherever in the universe you go. The bees converged on him and covered him like a blanket. The casing was so perfect that not an inch of him was left. They stung him everywhere with their deadly barbs. The guests watched this helplessly, unable to lend a helping hand. Bankatlal was sorry that he had brought Saint Gajanan to the farm. The saint could know with his divine insight that Bankatlal was rushing to save him from this plight. He was happy that there was one disciple trying to save him from this debacle. He looked at the bees and said, Now is the time for you to go and take rest. The bees flew back to their hives. It was just a minute's flight. The saint smiled and said, Bankat, you see, on me you gave a good feast to the bees. Remember, in times of calamity, no one helps except the Almighty. When the poisonous flies dived down to attack, the party lovers fled away in a pack. These selfish people love good food and sweets and ran away when the bees came to sting. Said Bankat with an apology, I am responsible for this tragedy. To pull out the burning barbs forthwith, shall I summon an expert goldsmith? The saint said, This is nothing bizarre. Stinging is a part of bees' nature. They behaved accordingly. This sting does not affect me. They are a part of God's creation. I too am in His incarnation. Just tell me how water can ever harm water? Bankat was happy at this awakening. He got a goldsmith to pull out the stings. The saint laughed and said, You would not be able to see them. In such a case, it is clear that they cannot be pulled out by pincers. He then took a deep breath and held it up for a while. The sting popped out of his body, leaving the observers breathless. They were glad to realize the greatness of Gajanan, the majestic saint. The crowd reassembled. The fiery bees were quiet. Maize corns were roasted without any quagmire. Guests enjoyed the feast to a great extent and went home in the evening with a great content. Sri Narsingh Ji, a Maratha saint of great distinction, had become one with God because of his devotion. He was a disciple of Kotishya Ali and stayed in dense woods not accessible easily. Biography of Sri Narsingh Ji is narrated in Bhakti Leelamrut pages, where details of his great deeds are narrated in detail. The forest lay near Akot, just 36 miles to the northeast of Bankat's domicile. The woods were deep and dense, with tall trees, wild grass, and creepers, inhabited by snakes and similar creatures. In such a dreadful forest, Sri Narsingh Ji stayed alone in complete seclusion. Gajanan went to see him on his own. Water merges with water, like things mix with each other, unlike things don't do it ever. Looking at Sri Gajanan, Narsingh Ji was happy beyond depiction. One was Hari and the other was Har. One was Rama, the other Murlidhar. One was sage Vashishta, other Parashar. One the banks of Ganga, other Godavari. One Kohinoor, other Kaustubamani. One Vainateya, other son of Anjani. When they met, they were very happy. They sat next to each other and exchanged experiences. Said the saint to Narsingha, "In picking family life, you did well. Renouncing that, I followed the path of yoga to know the ultimate reality, Brahma. The path of yoga has many strange things, incomprehensible to human beings. To hide them on many occasions, I behave like a crazy person. There are three paths to ultimate reality: action, devotion, and yogic ability. Apparently, they look as three different paths, but in reality, they have the same goal. Yoga is suppression of activities of body, mind, and will, so that the self may realize its distinction from them and attain liberation. If a yogi feels proud of his path, he will remain away from the ultimate fact. When you take up the yogic path, remain detached like the drop of water on a lotus leaf to understand the principle behind it. If you accept family life, be like a pebble in the river, remaining wet all the while, yet not soaking up a drop of water. Remain free from expectations with complete concentration on the master of this creation. Then nothing is impossible. You, I, God are one. The people around are not different. Such should be your behavior if you pick this as your option." With great modesty, said Sri Narsingji, "I am grateful to you for meeting me. Prapanch, this business of life is very much unreal, like the shadow at noontime. I will follow your kind counsel. Please come to me again and again. Everything is predestined in this world. Yet we have to perform our duty as well, as is prescribed by the Almighty. I request you to come here again. As a younger brother, it would be my gain. I will await you like Bharat at Nandigram, waiting for his brother Shri Ram. With your yogic power, it is easy for you to be here without touching your feet anywhere. You can travel anywhere you like. The three worlds to you are all alike." With great affection, they discussed various points of importance over and over. This is the way real saints behave, while hypocrites fight and rave. Don't select them as a guru ever. They breed greed. Be aware. They don't have any powers to guide a shattered boat to the pyre. They gather a lot of publicity. Shun them with prudence and discrimination. Setting up a monastery or composing poetry do not raise a man to sainthood. It needs knowledge and a selfless mood. Can anyone accept gold-plated brass as real piece of gold? Can anyone take a woman of disrepute to be the queen of this household? God consciousness and good outlook stay with one who rejects a crook. The two saints who met were real and rare. News went around to a court about their meeting there with the confluence of Godavari and Bhagirathi river. With flowers and coconuts, they rushed to the forest. By the time they were there, Saint Gajanan had already left with the kind permission of Saint Narsingji, disappointing the devotees of a court and thereabouts. In one of his wanderings with his followers, Sri Gajanan reached a town called Shivar on the banks of Chandrabhaga near Daryapur, Vidarbha, north of Pandrapur, abode of god Vithoba. Herein lived a learned Brahmin with Vrajabhushan as his name. He had mastered 4 languages and was famous all over the place. A devotee of sun god, every morning as a habit he bathed in Chandrabhaga and offered prayers to God of light. He was respected by learned men. As if a gift of his daily prayers, the saint went to the river near Shivar. When Vrajabhushan came for his routine bath, he saw the saint on the bank. Dawn was invading the blue. Birds were chirping with joy, welcoming the Lord of the sky. Darkness disappeared like fools from a congregation of learned men. As the sun peeped up the horizon, the saint sat engrossed in his blissful domain, surrounded by disciples as rays of light. Vrajabhushan saw Saint Gajanan, a shining form with long arms, eyes focused on nose in concentration. Vrajabhushan's joy knew no bounds. He rushed to the revered saint, washed his feet, and offered worship, bowed down to him with great respect, reciting the 12 names of sun, performing arati, and saying prayers in verse which went thus: I got the reward of my penance by a glimpse of your feet divine. I have been offering prayers to Sun God. I see him here now. What a delight! O Gajanan, you are the Brahma, full of knowledge and support to this universe. You take births again and again. All my concerns have vanished as I see you. Bestow all your kindness on me. This is all I ask of you. Saint Gajanan hugged him as a mother to the child and placing hand on his head spoke to him some words of choice. You will be respected and loved by people. Don't relinquish the path of duty. Don't think of rituals as meaningless. Yet, don't get involved in them completely. Do your duty unmindful of the fruits. This is the way to meet God and keep your outlook unblemished. Hold these words in your mind. Now go home. I will always meet you in your meditations. Thus saying, the saint gave him some coconut pieces and travelled back with followers to Shegau. Shegau was Shivgaon formerly, but in due course changed its name, which eventually stayed. 17 Patils lived in this place. The saint returned to Shegau, but not for long. He visited many places as he moved along. Summer passed by. It was Shravan, month of rain and festivals. Annual celebrations were on at Hanuman temple. Families of Patils, all devotees, gathered under the temple's canopy. Patil being a powerful authority, people cooperated in all his activity. This month-long function had all religious aspects: abhishek, prayers, and feasts for devotees to their heart's content. Kandu Patil, a noble person, was the leader of the function. Authority is like a tiger skin and becomes a terror to people and kin. Yet people united achieve a lot, which a king alone cannot. The saint came to the temple to attend festivals in Shravan. He said to Bankatlal, Now here, from now I will be staying here. Hope you don't mind this choice. Seers don't live in a friend's house. I have relinquished all worldly ties and will live in a temple all my life. That doesn't mean I ignore you at all. I am here at your beck and call. Shankaracharya moved from place to place. Machindra and Jalandhar avoided houses. Shivaji's mentor Ramadas Sant selected Sajjangad as his place. Think over it and don't say no. After all, this place is yours too. Bankatlal was helpless and gave his consent. Maharaj came to the temple and everyone rejoiced. Bhaskar Patil stayed with him. He enjoyed the choice. May this composition help seekers to reach the feet of the saint. Jai Gajanan.